Real esoteric spirituality without all of the fluff, without all of the nonsense. This is the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. Click subscribe and then hit the little bell button so that you can be notified whenever I've uploaded a video or when I'm doing the live Q&A videos. Good evening, Thunder Wizards. I thought about what I wanted to talk about today. I've been working all day, busting my rear end, putting together new teaching platforms and those kinds of things. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to talk about. So when I don't know, I ask myself, what is it that I want to accomplish for myself? What is it that's important to me? And that's what I talk about. And if nothing else, I will be my own student. I will be the audience that listens to what I'm trying to accomplish for myself. So what I'm going to share with you today came out of a discussion with one of my apprentices that I had on the phone. It was a really exciting discussion. Sometimes, with my students, I get into some really great discussions, and I really enjoy that. I really enjoy communicating with somebody who's really passionate about learning and who really wants to explore the boundaries. And it's just, it's very, very fulfilling for me to not only find people like myself who really want to expand their horizons spiritually, but people who are able to understand, some of the things that I'm trying to say. So that's what happened the other day. We started talking about Odin. We were talking about all the gods, but we started talking about Odin. And I heard myself say some things that really resonated with me that I really liked. Odin really, as much as any of the gods, is really about unyielding willpower for your own transformation. And I think this is why Odin is seen as being a frightening god, seen as a furious god, a god of rage, some people call him. But that's only from our limited perspective. Odin and Shiva share the same name. Odin has many names, so does Shiva. And both of them have the name of terrifying. Odin's is Ug, means terrifying. Used to mean, now we use the word to describe something that's unpleasant to look at, a person that's unpleasant to look at. Ug liche, Ug-like. It's the adverb. But Ug means terrifying. So if somebody was Ug-liche, they were terrifying to look at. Now it just means that they're plain. And Shiva, his name is Ugra, terrifying. Ugra and Ug, same word. Same word. And, we could say they're the same word in the same language, because Vedic, Sanskrit, and Germanic languages are just different dialects of the same root language, which is what we call Indo-European. And he is horrifying and terrifying only because that's how we experience him. We experience him that way because we have limitation. And he has forced himself to go beyond his limitation. And we find in the historical timeline we find that Odin and Shiva both appear at the same time. Because we know from the Indo-European record that Odin is not originally the head of the gods. In fact, Odin only appears among the Germanic tribes later on in history. But if we go all the way back to earlier Indo-European religions, we don't find Odin. We find Tiw, or Zeus, whose real name is D. Zeus is the vocative. His name is not Zeus. His name is, and the Z is there because there's a D. Zeus. His name is D. The temple in Greek was called Dion, which meant the place of D. And in the Vedic, Deus Pita, and in the Latin, he is Diu Piter. Deus Pita and Diu Piter are the same name. Diu Piter, Jupiter. It means sky father. Chinese called him Di as well. He was the celestial emperor who resided in the North Star. He's the most ancient, I believe, of sky gods. And probably if we did enough research, we could probably find that the sky father in other traditions, you will find there may be a linguistic link to the sound D. Day, we use the word day, it means day. We're talking about the sky filled with the sun, the day. You can call him the day father if you want. He was the first king. And Tiw was manifested. He manifested, when he came into manifestation, he already was a celestial deity. He already was who he is. That's his essence. He represents the highest awareness. The reason why the Tiw rune, the Tiwaj rune, represents victory, and a lot of people, I think mistakenly, think that victory means victory in battle. I don't think that's what it means. And it may mean that you can achieve victory through the properties of the Tiw rune, the Tiwaj rune. But it's because the Tiwaj rune represents highest awareness. And even the rune itself looks like a T. It looks like here's the pole of the universe and here's the canopy. Represents, what holds the universe up. Represents the North Star, represents the top of the sky, represents the crown chakra, highest awareness. So if you achieve victory through the power of Tiwaj, it means you achieve it because of your highest awareness, not because you've got the bigger guns. And it has, in my experience, it's got nothing to do with battle in the sense that people want to make it out. Tiw is a warrior god, and he is in continuous warfare with the wolf Fenris. If you know the mythology, then the Fenris, the wolf, was brought into Asgard as a puppy. And he was the pet of the gods. Now, Fenris himself represents the lower appetites of the human personality. And that you have to listen to all of the details of the mythology to understand it. That's a very important detail. Now, we want to vilify Fenris, we want to vilify Loki, we want to vilify all of the beings that engage in the Ragnarok destruction. But we don't. But the gods don't judge like we do. So the fact that Fenris was allowed into Asgard as a puppy, as a pet, means that the gods do not judge you for your instincts, for your appetites. The problem is when your appetites, which are your lower chakras, your lower vibration, your whatever, your greed, your lust, your fear, all the things that make you want to consume and to hoard, the desires and the instincts that can never be satisfied. When they start to grow out of control, then they threaten to swallow up the universe. It means your appetites threaten to destroy your existence. And so the gods don't seek to destroy Fenris. You have to make sure you look at all of the details here. They don't seek to destroy Fenris. They seek to just limit him because they're afraid he's going to swallow the universe. And so they try and bind him. They try and bind him with rope. They try and bind him with chain. He breaks through all of them very easily. What that means is that you cannot suppress your instincts. You cannot suppress your desires. You can't suppress them. You can't suppress your sexual drives. You can't suppress your hunger. You can't suppress your need for power, protection, money. You can't suppress those feelings because then what happens? Fenris breaks out. He will destroy. In fact, the more pressure you put on him, the more explosive he will break out of those bonds. The only rope that was able to keep him was the rope of subtlety. I forget what they all are. The sound of a cat's footfall, meaning you can't hear a cat. When a cat doesn't want to be heard, you can't hear a cat stepping on the ground. When I forget, with the lips of a chicken or something like that. I forget what the other ones are. But there are things that they don't exist. You look for them, you're not going to find them. We'll take the cat's footfall. A cat does step on the ground, but you can't hear it. You listen for it, you're not going to hear it. So this takes subtlety. You need a subtle touch. This is what keeps Fenris bound. Now, Tiwaj represents highest awareness, right? Enlightenment in its purest form. And Fenris says, I don't trust you with that magical rope of subtlety you have over there. I don't trust you to put that on me. I know you're trying to play a trick on me. And they say, no, we're not playing a trick on you, the gods say to him. And so he says, all right, if one of you is willing to put your hand in my mouth, then I'll trust you, because then I'll know that you're not willing to lose your hand. And the only God who was willing to do that put his right hand, which is his fighting hand. This is important. This is his fighting hand. He puts it in Fenris's mouth. Now, a warrior is not going to give up his fighting hand. Listen to this. A warrior is not going to give up his fighting hand. If his job is to be a warrior, that means he needs to be available to protect, to go to war, to protect his people. He is not going to give that up. If he's a true warrior, the first thing that's going to pop into his head is, hang on, as much as I want to prove this point here, I can't because these people are depending on me. So no, I'm not putting my hand in that. Because I already know you guys plan on double crossing him. But he chooses, he volunteers, readily volunteers, and he puts his fighting hand into the mouth of Fenris. And sure enough, Fenris cannot break free from the rope of subtlety, and he takes Tiw's fighting hand, takes it. Now we see him as somebody whose hand is gone, as though he's already had his hand bitten off. But remember, he's a god. He's not a person. He doesn't live in normal space-time. That means his hand is in his mouth to this day. He is using his fighting hand. His job is to fight against Fenris. He can't kill Fenris, but what he can do is keep Fenris occupied while life continues. So we may see him walking around with this nub. He doesn't have a right hand anymore, but make no mistake, he is well aware. He can feel his hand in Fenris's mouth. This means that his job is to fight, his job is to struggle with Fenris, which is our lower instincts, our lower drives, which when left out of control are drives for physical survival. When they go out of control, they threaten to consume everything, to destroy us. It means that your highest awareness is constantly seeking to bring that balance. It cannot destroy, nor does it seek to destroy your instincts, your base instincts. You use them, and you use your highest awareness to channel them in ways that are constructive and helpful for you. Now, I bring all this up because Tiw is the original king of the gods. And then now we have Odin, who comes up. Woden. Woden. He who is made of wood. What is wood? Wood is the self-immolation, the consumption of oneself in shamanic fury. So remember that fury is only when you're on the other side of it. Shamanic fury, for somebody who's not in it, looks like rage, but it's not. It is a purity of essence that it destroys the limitation of your ego, of your identity, the limitations of your identity. Odin is the only being in the universe that can go into the void and retain his identity because he has no limitation. He has no identity. His identity is awareness. Wod. That's his identity. Everybody else has an identity. We have a limitation. He doesn't. And Woden and Shiva both emerge in the historical record about the same time, because in the original Vedic religion, Shiva just means auspicious, but he wasn't. He was an epithet. And in fact, he was one of the names of Indra. So they were just saying Indra was auspicious. But when he became a god in his own right, that happened later on. And then he became the king of the gods in the Vedic tradition. But he represents the same thing. He represents the highest awareness. So here we have Tiw, who represents the highest awareness that is focused on keeping your lower instincts from consuming you. Can't destroy them. You channel them with your highest awareness. You keep them in check and use them to accomplish your goals. Because in limited space-time, we have to have these so-called negative tendencies in order to accomplish our goal. You have to have ambition. You have to have drive. You have to have ego. You have to be willing to be competitive. You have to be willing to sacrifice other people and relationships in order to achieve what you want. It's incredibly important stuff. These are all what we would, put into our lower vibrations. And it gets out of whack, then you end up becoming a megalomaniac, or you end up becoming destructive, or you end up becoming addicted, violent. Then you're no good to yourself or anybody else. That's Fenris swallowing up the universe. And then we have this power of Odin, which arrives on the scene. Now, as I've said before, and I know it's a stretch, to comprehend, but I believe that Odin did not start out as a god. I believe that Odin started out as a dwarf. And the dwarf nature is the human, what makes you a human being when you're on this earth. The part of you that gives you a human being's mind. The part of you that gives you human emotions. This is the dwarf nature. Dwarves, as we talked about last time, when dwarves are out of balance, they become dragons. They become the kind of dragons that hoard wealth. And the hero Sigurd fights against his brother, who is a dwarf, who became a dragon. And he fights with him to release the hoard of treasure, which includes the Helm of Awe. He releases that back into the hands of human beings. And so we see the difference between the lower, just the human nature, when it's left to itself and it does not connect to or acknowledge higher beings and higher awareness, just like in the Lord of the Rings books. You know, when the dwarves do not acknowledge the elves, then they fight with them. And just like that, our dwarf nature, you know, again, there's no coincidence that the dwarf kingdom that's hoarding all this wealth attracts a dragon, because dwarves become dragons when they're not in alignment with the elves. And so it is that is the basis of human experience. And as you know, when you look at the thunder wheel, you go from southeast to northwest. You go from dwarf, you pass through human in Midgard, and you end up in elf in the northwest, which means that our destiny as human beings is to become elves, to become ascended masters, to go beyond human limitation and achieve that status, which is, some people might say, is equal to or even above that of the gods. And Odin is the deity who achieved that without having to go through the human, physical human part. This is my take on it. You can do with it what you want. There's a verse in, I forget, in the Voluspa, where it seems to indicate that from the train of dwarves, it lists all the dwarves that were created, it says that the gods created human-like beings from the life force energy of the universe. And then it names off all of these dwarves. And all of these dwarves have human characteristics. They're all human psychological, emotional characteristics. And what I'm saying is that we operate from that, we identify with that as humans walking around on the ground. It is our job to reach out, to open up the higher aspects of us, listening to the elves and worshiping the elves and following their advice and following their example. And then we get to be Mon. We're no longer just dwarf, then we're Mon, we're human. And it is the human being's journey here on planet Earth multiple times over and over, where we finally refine that, and then we never have to be human again, and we become elves. We become ascended masters. And I'm saying that Odin achieved that without having to go through the interim process of being a human. And he sacrificed himself to himself. So Odin is going to be very strongly connected to emotion. That's why he also appears as rage. He's also fully, completely aware of his emotions. And we can't do that. If we were to allow ourselves to become fully cognizant of all of our feelings, we'd explode. We couldn't handle it. But Odin is without limitation. He is also, there's just no such thing as surrender. Odin won't surrender to any limitation. So I'm starting all of this because I want to get to a point as I've been thinking about. You know, one of my failings is that I get frustrated. I get frustrated when I observe the way people go through life, and to me it seems like it's so obvious to me. And of course, this is, you know, hindsight is 2020. It's easy to point fingers and not look at yourself, but it's frustrating to me when I see people indulging in their excuses and allowing themselves to be limited and to be sabotaged by their own human experience. And I want to make sure that I don't minimize it, because I'm not. I've got some, you know, some ideas of people I've known throughout my life in my mind, and I know how challenging their life is. I know what it's like to be human. I mean, look, it's very hard for me to have compassion for somebody, you know, like in the YouTube, when they start complaining about whatever their limitations are and why their life is crappy. It's very hard for me to have compassion because, you know, I've gone through enough of my own that I know what it's like to be in the position to want to give up. I know what it's like to be in a position to want to be a victim and to want to, you know, blame the world and blame everything. You know, I mean, you guys know of at least one scenario where, you know, you watched me go through it. Absolutely the most, and I've gone through some extremely difficult things in my life, and that was the most. I hope I never have to go through something like that again. But if I do, you know, that's part of life. And it hasn't stopped me. And that's because I have something that I wish that I could give. I wish that I could teach people to have. But like Odin, the only way you can get it is if you get it yourself. And that is, I refuse. I refuse to give up. I refuse to let anything stop me. And if there is something that seems, you know, unbeatable, some problem that gets in front of me that makes it look like there's no way I can ever overcome this, I stop and I go, there's a way around this. I'm going to figure it out. And I refuse to accept, you know, the unacceptable. I refuse. That's different from denial. Denial is pretending it's not there. I'm looking at it. It's right in front of me, and I'm well aware of what it is. I'm not pretending it's not there. I just refuse to let it beat me. And what I've seen is that as I've gone through life, as I get older, which is when you're supposed to get weaker and you're supposed to get, you know, life is supposed to catch up to you and you're supposed to start slowing down, it's been the opposite for me. As I get older, the stronger, the more determined I get. And, you know, we could say, well, it's genetics, or it's my astrology. My astrology chart definitely says that as I get older, I'm going to become, you know, more and more of a hard and determined warrior, and that my enemies will, you know, flee in front of me, and all that stuff is in my chart. But is the chart making me that way, or is the chart simply reflecting what my spirit decided it wanted to do when it got here? And there's, you know, I'm continuing to give tools, and I will continue to give tools. I will rack my brain trying to come up with how can I give tools to people that will give them access to this power and give them the ability to be that for themselves. I will continue to do that until I die. So even people's unwillingness, seeming, you know, unwillingness to do the work to give themselves what they want, isn't going to stop me. But I do get frustrated. I get frustrated when people give up. I get frustrated when people give up and then they start making excuses for giving up. When they start complaining and they go out of their way, and people go out of their way. I mean, I want so badly to give you some examples of, you know, comments that have come on the channel. It's just I try to engage and then I give up. If you want to be a victim, you can. And I understand wanting to do that. If you want to give up, you can. There's no shortage of reasons. But the same is true. See, here's the thing. The choice is the same. The choice to victory and defeat is the same. It takes the same amount of energy. Because the people who want to talk about why life doesn't work for them, whatever it is, they have to continuously tell that story to themselves. They've made a decision. They're going to give up. They're going to be a victim, whatever way it is. Or they're going to see the world that everything is against them. You know, by the way, this is all this. I don't want to get into it because it distracts us. But all the conspiracy theory nonsense and all of the fear-based nonsense and all of they're doing it to us. You know how I feel about that. It doesn't mean that there aren't conspiracies and there aren't challenges and there aren't people trying to do it to you. But if you are, in fact, the son or daughter of Odin, and if you are a human being, you are, in fact, the son or daughter of Odin, then you have within you this infinite capacity to overcome absolutely every obstacle that exists. I mean, if, you know, Odin, unlike Jesus, you know, Jesus says, I'll do it. I'm the only one who can. I'm the Son of God. I have no sin. I'm one of the Trinity. I will do it for you, you stupid fucking humans. That's how much I love you. I'll die for you, you fucking losers. You know, you can't do it. You must give all glory to Jesus. He does all the work. Odin doesn't say that. Odin says, watch what I'm going to do, because what I do, you can do. And his gift isn't that he comes and does it for you. His gift is, I'm showing you how to do it. And how does he do it? He sacrifices himself on the tree of life, which is none other than the spinal column. Spinal column holds the Kundalini. The Kundalini is the human energetic awareness. It's not spiritual awareness. It's human psychological awareness. And it is an energy. It is a spiritual energy. He sacrifices himself on that tree, which means that he dies to his own idea of his identity. And as he dies to his own idea of himself, his own limitations, as he dies to his own limitations, the secrets, the runes are revealed to him. Screaming, he takes them up. Meaning, once again, he is completely connected to his passion, to his emotions, which is why I'm constantly telling people you have to have access to your emotions. What are you feeling? You don't have to take action on them. You have to feel them. And we usually want to do one of the other. We either want to release the tension of the emotions by acting out on them without thinking about it. Or we can't tolerate the emotions, and so we stuff them down. But what we are here to do is to take conscious action on our feelings. And sometimes that means taking actions that's directly opposite what your feelings are telling you to do. This is the whole reason we're here. It's the whole reason. This is it. This is the struggle. This is the challenge. And the end result is to achieve utter fulfillment. When I think of Odin, you know, I see pictures of Odin and he's this grizzled old man with one eye. I'm Odin. I don't see him that way. I see him as, if anything, he always has this mischievous, shit-eating grin on his face. That's how I see him. He and Loki are a lot alike. Loki is the dark side of Odin. Odin and Loki are blood brothers. So I think that Odin is the god for all humanity, because he represents the human being's struggle against his or her own limitations and goes beyond them to achieve godhood. He is placed on the throne of the gods. He's called the All-Father. And we know historically that he wasn't the original God. We know that. So he must have earned it. And he earned it through what I've already been explaining to you. So if you want to say that you're a follower of Odin, there are two things you have to do, in my opinion. One is you have to see yourself in everybody. Everybody, anybody in the world, no matter what country, no matter what ethnicity, no matter what language, no matter what background, if you can't see yourself in them, you are not Odin. Why? Because Odin has no fixed identity. If you see yourself as a fixed identity, whether it's who you are, my name is so-and-so, or I'm a resident of this country, or this is my ethnicity, then you have a limitation. At that point, you stop being Odin. So in order to be Odin, you have to see yourself in everybody. You know, I'm talking to myself here. Remember, I started out saying that I have a problem. I get frustrated with people. I get frustrated with people that don't just do it. Just, you know, don't, that give up. I get frustrated with that. It frustrates me when I keep telling people the same thing over and over again. How many times how many different ways can I tell you the same thing? I get frustrated. That's my limitation. So I'm talking to myself here. I have to be able to see myself in everybody if I want to say I'm a follower of Odin. And the other thing, if you want to be a follower of Odin, is you can't give up. And this goes hand in hand with what I talk about when I talk about your soul desire. You know, being willing to sacrifice everything to find out what it is that makes you truly happy. Let me be clear about that. It may sound very trivial when I say to you, what is your soul desire? But understand that for some people, myself included, for some people, to just be able to become aware of what your soul desire is will in and of itself feel like you are dying. And it will take everything in you to overcome that and to win that battle. And you really will, in some cases, have to go up against human beings who are committed to keeping you from achieving that. And you have to be willing to sacrifice the people you love the most, meaning, you know, sacrifice their love and approval of you in order to achieve that. And for some people, that is more frightening and more difficult than walking out into a war zone with a gun. You know, I laugh at, I find guns to be really silly. You know, it's one thing if you're in the military, you know, they give you a gun. That's how it works. But citizens who fucking worship guns, I just don't get it. I don't get it. What power do you get from that? You know, you want to present yourself as this tough guy, and yet you have to carry a gun around to show everybody how fucking tough you are. It doesn't take a tough guy to pull a fucking trigger. Sorry. Anyway, that's my own personal thing. I'm going to be going off to Australia and New Zealand for a year, and I'm grateful they don't have guns. Actually, it never bothers me. I've never owned a gun my whole life. I've never owned one. Never had to use one. I've lived in the worst neighborhoods. I've never had to have a gun. And that just tells you that I'm not afraid of life. I'm not stupid. You know, I'm not going to go living. There are some places I won't go living. You know, I'm not going to go move to some dangerous places. But you know what? If I really loved those places, you name whichever you think is the worst place in the world to live. If I had a passion for it and I loved it, I'd go do it without any fear. You know, because anything will kill you. Anything can kill you. Who's the guy? The crocodile guy. I forget his name. Died doing what he loved. He was out swimming in the ocean, and stingray stabbed him in the chest and tore open his heart and killed him. Anything can kill you. Fucking gun isn't going to protect you from anything. So I really want to be like Odin in that I don't want to let anything stop me from having what I want. I just refuse. And I'm willing to die going after what makes me happy. And that's how I feel today, and I hope I always feel that way. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but it served me up until now. And part of the thing about that is being willing to die to what you think you know. To have the humility to die to what you think you know. This is why I talk so much about critical thinking. Odin is a critical thinker. Now, a lot of people, when I use the word critical thinking, it means that they're smart and they can figure shit out. Some of the people who love using the phrase critical thinking the most are atheists and agnostics. And I have nothing against atheism or agnosticism, but they're as full of shit as anybody else. And I've got some friends who are atheists, and they'll talk about it like they see things objectively, and I'll say, so what is your emotional agenda around being an atheist? And they, what do you mean? I don't have any emotional agendas. Of course you do. Everybody has emotional agendas. I have emotional agendas, and I can tell you what they are. I go out of my way to try and always know what my emotional agendas are so that they won't cloud my ability to see objective reality. And if somebody has an emotional agenda against spirituality because they grew up in a monotheist, they went to a Baptist church or a Catholic church or a Jewish synagogue and found out that Jehovah was a dickhead, so they decided they didn't believe in God, and because they've been programmed to believe there's only one God, they just decided there aren't any gods, and there's no such thing as spirituality. You get deep into that, we're going to find that somebody has an emotional agenda against those angry feelings. So instead of being honest and working through that, they say, "Oh, I'm an atheist. I'm an agnostic. I don't know. I don't know what exists." What a cop-out. I don't know what exists either. I've made some choices about what I believe works and what makes sense to me and what gives me a better life. Now, that's what I do. Maybe being an agnostic or an atheist will help somebody have a better life, and if so, my hair is off to them. So, just wanted to kind of vent and ramble about that. If you really say that you want to follow Odin, you don't have any space to give up. You don't have any space to find excuses. I'm thinking of somebody right now that goes onto the channel frequently and makes excuses for why they won't go after what they want. And I have no sympathy. I mean, I do. I have sympathy for what they must go through because it's sad to be unhappy and miserable and unsatisfied. It's sad. And I know that a lot of things happen that create those problems. But I'm never going to co-sign anybody's victimhood. I'm never going to do it. Never. And I think I've gone through enough shit in my life, I could come up with plenty of excuses. But again, what I keep saying, it sounds like I'm bragging, and I don't mean it to be bragging, but I've overcome so many challenges and difficulties, not because of any other reason other than I refuse to be unhappy. I refuse. I won't do it. I will die going after my happiness, and whatever the hell that takes. And whatever misery I have to go through in order to not give up, I will do it. Because that's what Odin did. And that's one of the reasons I love Odin and I love self-awareness. When you are self-aware, you will never do anything to limit your fulfillment. And I see Odin as a god of infinite fulfillment of himself. He died to, he sacrificed himself. He didn't sacrifice himself to God. He didn't sacrifice himself to the gods. He sacrificed himself to himself, to his own satisfaction. And his satisfaction was awareness. Awareness of all things. Connection to all things. He's the only God that can go into all of the worlds seamlessly. That's why Sleipnir has 8 legs. Slipper. He slips between the cracks between the worlds. It's because he doesn't let anything stop him. He doesn't destroy things. He allows himself to become everything. And to do that, he has to have no fixed identity. So, enough rambling out of me. Looks like we have some people on here, and I'll see if I'll answer any questions. And I'll try my best not to be a frustrated teacher. Let's see here. Mukund Kashyap, question. In Celestial Qigong, while doing the 30 Saz Mudra exercise, is it normal for the hands to shift upwards gradually? So we've had this discussion before, but before your hand was moving to the side. No, it is not. It's that's not what's supposed to happen. It should stay in one spot in front of the navel center. Also, is it normal for some qi to collect at the middle dantian? Is it normal? Well, when you're working with one dantian, you're working with all of them. I don't know what you mean by qi to collect at the middle dantian. It could be that your dantians are starting to fill up, because eventually if you fill up the lower one, the other two will fill up as well. It's one of the reasons why I don't necessarily teach people how to open up the other two dantians, because it's unnecessary for most people, and it can cause an imbalance. It's the best way is to have the navel fill up, and then it spills up into the other two. Okay, Steve Irwin, yeah, that was the guy. Steve Irwin was the guy who died doing what he loved. You know, I think about people like that. You know, like surfers who die surfing big waves. Mark Fu, one of the early guys who came from Hawaii to surf the big waves here in Northern California, and he died tragically. You know, it was a tragedy for everybody, but his soul must have been happy. He died doing what he loved. And how can you, somebody's committed their life to surfing, that's how they die. If you got to go, that's the way to do it. That's the way to go. Steve Irwin, he loved animals and he loved nature, and he died doing what he loved. And it's a tragedy for all those that are left behind, but for his soul, I don't know that he could have died a better way. What a blessing. All right, I don't see any other questions here, so I'm going to call it an evening. And what I am suggesting that people do right now is to use the 4 tools. I am now putting a package together which has all of the 4 tools that you need, in my experience, to achieve all this stuff that we're talking about. And that is, to see that, go to neo.thunderwizard.com. That is, you need 4 tools. First, you need to know what your destination is. For Odin, his destination was self-awareness. That's what he wanted more than anything else. He wanted to become self-aware. In order to do that, you have to have the map. For him, the map was the Tree of Life, the 8 worlds, dying on the Tree of Life. That was his map. His destination and his map. You have to have that. It's the first tool. That one is in a series that I call how to find your perfect career. It's not just about career, but career is what we need. We need to have a career, something that we do. The idea is that a true career is the universe paying you to be your true self. When you are your true self and you know what that is and you've become aware, when you've fought the battle to fight through all of the illusion to find out what it is you truly want, and you own that and take action on it, the universe pays you to exist. It's my experience and my belief. That's the first tool you need. Second tool you need is the vehicle. Somebody else already mentioned the vehicle, Celestial Qigong. Now, there are all kinds of vehicles out there, but this is the most powerful one that I know. You need to be able to tap directly into the power of the universe, because the universe is made up of life force energy. To be able to know how to travel through the universe of life, you need to have power, and that is Celestial Qigong. Now, the Celestial Qigong by itself, if you are conscious and aware and you automatically know to do all these things, it will give you the power to achieve your highest awareness, your transcendence, however you want to look at it. I can tell you from personal experience, there's a lot of people, and my teachers included, who have tons of energy who don't know the first fucking clue about who they are and what they're doing with their life. They're miserable and crazy and upset. So Celestial Qigong can give awareness if you are already on the path to awareness, but it won't prevent you from going down your own craziness and becoming, a thirst, or becoming, as my teachers called it, becoming a Darth Vader. Power in and of itself is not good or bad, but you do need power if you want to achieve that. So that's your first tool, is the map, the destination. Second tool is the vehicle, which is power. The third tool is, what is the third tool? The third tool is knowing what I call the rules of the road. And this is a series that I've called the 5 tools to master the matrix. And so these 3 are 3 different video series that up until now have been bought separately. Now you can buy all 3 of them together, and I've shaved off a bunch of money so you can save some money to get them. And then the fourth tool is, what did I call the fourth tool? The fourth tool is the ability to hack into the architect. Who is the architect? People think God is the architect. People think destiny is the architect. The architect in the Matrix movie is that guy who's manipulating everybody to achieve his desired end. The architect is your unconscious mind. And in my experience, the only way to truly hack into the unconscious mind is by understanding shamanic ritual. And that is what we discuss on the Patreon channel, thethunderwizard.com. And the thunderwizard.com, the Patreon channel, at the Manifestation Mastery course level and above, starting when YouTube lets me come back on, I'm going to start doing live Q&As on the Patreon channel for people who are doing all of this work, like Mukund Kashyap, who's working with at least Celestial Qigong, is doing some of it. And you can ask these kinds of educated questions and we can go very deep into it. As you know, when I get back onto the live YouTube Q&As, there's going to be a lot of looky-loos coming in asking a bunch of crazy generalized questions. And so you may want to have more of my time and energy helping you to focus on specific things that you're doing with things that I've taught, and knowing how to unify all these 4 tools. But these are the 4 tools. If you know how to use them, in my experience, I think we can achieve things similar to ODIN, or we can achieve everything, absolutely everything. Ideally, you want to be in the place where you can simply intend your reality and have it manifest. I don't think you can do that without these 4 tools. To get started with that, go to neo.thunderwizard.com. Okay, so that's it for me. I don't think there's any more questions here. Nope. I will see you guys soon.